Hey everybody, Pastor Mark here. It's Wednesday, and you know that means it's time for our check-in. I hope this finds you well this week. This week's been pretty busy at the church. We've got new signs of life and gatherings and things happening, and it's been fun to be worshiping in person and all of that great stuff. But I'm still mindful that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and we're still being careful and being safe, socially distanced and wearing masks when we're inside. So keep it up, you're doing great, hang in there, and hopefully this pandemic will be over soon. In the last several of these Wednesday videos, I've also tried to just give you a little insight into what I'm working on for this week's sermon. And this week is a particularly neat story from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus takes the disciples on an interesting field trip to the town of Caesarea Philippi. And Caesarea Philippi is an odd place for Jesus to take his disciples. It's a pagan monument town. There's all sorts of carvings and inscriptions. It's kind of a center of pagan religion and philosophy. So it's an interesting place for Jesus to take the disciples. And in the midst of that place, he says, "Who do people say that I am?" And the disciples say, some Elijah, some prophet, some, we don't know. And then Jesus says to them, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter has this beautiful orthodox, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And it's this kind of incredible moment where someone dares say what everybody else is thinking, that this is the one that we've been waiting for. This is the one of whom the prophet spoke, the one that we've been waiting for, the one who has come to change everything for us. And then Jesus goes on to talk to them about what must happen, that the Son of Man will undergo trial and suffering and persecution and will be killed. And Peter, the one who just made this great confession, says to Jesus, kind of pulls him aside and says, "Jesus, it can't go that way. That's not how the story is supposed to go." And Jesus says to Peter, who just got the gold star, remember, "Get behind me, Satan, for your mind is on human things, not of heavenly things." So after that stunning rebuke, Jesus goes on to teach the crowds about what it means to actually be his follower. And here's the part that I'm really curious with this week. He says, "Those who want to save their life will lose it. And for those who lose their life for the sake of the gospel will gain it." Perhaps the trick to getting the most out of this life is not clinging to it as rigidly as we can, but letting go and allowing the fullness and abundance of God to take over. Maybe by overly clinging and being overly rigid, overly hard, we're actually losing the thing that we're seeking. So in this kind of paradoxical way, Jesus is inviting us into the fullness of the kingdom of God, into the fullness of salvation, by saying, if you want to save your life, you've got to lose it for my sake and for the sake of the gospel, instead of just rigidly clinging to things that are false and not eternal. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm thinking about. Thanks for your comments and your feedback. I've appreciated the conversations in these last weeks, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, whether you can join us in person or in the live stream. See you this weekend.